think about who you want to be.
Reconvening in open session, procedural business. Call to order the board.
Call to order. The Board of Trustees are hereby reconvened to open session at 5:38 p.m. Roll call. Trustees identify themselves by first and last name to formally establish quorum. And I want to note that Jordana Ridland had to leave at 4:51 p.m. We wish her all the best this evening. And with that, Scott Kraft, trustee area 1.
Cindy Gardner, trustee area 3.
Jordan Zarate, trustee area 5, Running Springs, Arrowhead Lake, Green Valley Lake.
Dr. William Millinger, trustee area 1.
6.3.
6.3, pledge of allegiance. Bill, would you do us the honors, please?
Please stand, place your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 7.1, closed session report. The Board of Trustees approved a vote. Trustees approval to approve the bid deficiency for Montgomery Hardware Company per public contract code 20111. And it was unanimous. Public testimony. I believe we have none at this time.
We have.
Actually, we have to discuss.
You have the readout channel? No, because it's shooting on. Oh, I turned it back.
They won't get the
Yeah.
same numbers.
We had 2 expulsions and the board unanimously approved both expulsions. 8.0 plus public testimony. We have none at this time.
Yeah.
RTA representatives, I believe we don't have anybody for my RTA either.
Or CSE.
CSEA, do we have anybody? Thank you. 9.1, governing board members. I think I'm just going to go ahead and start because I just want to wish Jordana all the best as she had to just leave early. And we hope she has a restful evening, but more importantly, I want to wish all the teachers a restful summer that they can get recharged. And I look forward to a great year next year. So hopefully things go well over the summer for everybody. And I want to also thank all those staff members that are working hard over the summer. And I wish that everybody could see, because I remember seeing it as a teacher, all the work that you put in is so appreciated. So I just want to encourage you with that thought. Thank you.
Oh, I just want to say, thank you to all of the teachers, all of the staff, all the administrators, cabinet, even parents and students for working so hard this year, doing such a great job and finishing strong. Because sometimes, you know, we have some dips where we don't want to really plug along, and we do. So thank you to everyone for finishing strong and making it another great year at Run of the World Unified School District. Have a great summer. Recharge your batteries, because I'm going to. And we'll get started and hit the ground running next year. Right, Mr. Zimmer? Yay, I'll be painting that gray paint there, buddy. All right.
Jordan, would you like to go next?
Sure thing. Yes, yeah, won't repeat the happy summers, but definitely wishing them. In other news, the governor and legislature reached a budget deal for the 2025-26 fiscal year ahead. So it has its positives and negatives. It keeps the 2.3% COLA that's anticipated. It fully funds discretionary block grant, yes, of 1.7 billion. And but it also continues to have Prop 98 underfunded, which is constitutionally questionable. So interesting developments there. There was a lot of, the discretionary block grant is the big one that had a discrepancy between the governor's May revise and the one adopted by the legislature. So it's interesting that they came back for it and fully funded that. Lots of implications there, and looking forward to continuing to talk on the budget route, but I'll save some of that for our advocacy. All right, third meeting down for the month for board. Looking forward to July. Bill?
Thank you. Just a couple of brief comments, and that is, one is that I appreciate the fact that a budget is being agreed upon, but I'm so concerned about what that means for us financially as a district and for school districts across the state. And I'm still concerned about our deficit spending, and I appreciate that we are working to try to make changes there, even with the issues that will be voted on tonight. But deficit spending is still causing us challenges and problems for the future. And then lastly, I want to welcome our new principal to RIM. We did vote on and approve you at our last meeting, so yeah, it is official. So welcome. I hope you'll get to know the facility and the location a little bit. There's a lot for you to learn, I understand, but yeah, find that new office and all. So seriously, welcome. Congratulations.
And now that he's principal, he ate that sandwich for the first time, which is nice.
You're on some phone.
9.2, Superintendent, Dr. Paul Sedion.
Just a couple of things. One, I want to thank the board and the cabinet for our discussion on the June 20th board retreat. I thought the board provided direction to the superintendent and cabinet on the district's strategic goals for the 25-26 school year. And remember, our strategic plan goals are aligned to our LCAP goals, with the exception of one, which is the fiscal accountability and facilities goal, which we have developed some actions around. Also, the board retreat provided time for us to revisit critical needs of the district and to align our district actions and resources to meet those needs and really focus on continuous improvement. And lastly, I want to wish everyone a terrific summer, have time to recharge with your family and friends, and look forward to 25-26 school year.
10.1, Superintendent, Legislature, and Advocacy Report, Fiscal Impact, none.
Okay, so I forwarded you the update on the pregnancy leave of 14 weeks. It's now been converted to a 2-year bill, meaning that motion on that has really stalled. The author put the price tag of that as $100 million, and everybody else thinks it's going to far exceed $100 million. And we have to remember that, yes, this might be a great idea. However, all of that money comes out of Prop 98. So anything that you put towards that has to come from somewhere else. So unless you expand Prop 98 to include some of these big ticket items that are good ideas and good intentions, it's competing with increasing teacher salaries, making sure you don't cut programs and services for students. So it does come at a cost. So just saying that, I'm sure Mr. Hansen is super excited that he's got more hair on his head today. Some updates on some bills that we were kind of watching, AB 1224, which is the 60 days, increasing subs to 60 days. That was in the Senate Education Committee, but that hearing was actually canceled at the request of the author. Have no idea why. I didn't see the reasoning why. AB 560, which would lower the caseloads and class sizes for research specialists and special day classes. It is in the Senate Education Committee to be heard. Yes. I thought I'd point that out because I know we put it out there, and it is concerning. It would cost a lot of, it would cost additional money, but also getting the staff is also problematic, especially for rural school districts. AB 1064, we haven't spoken about this one, but it's an interesting one. It would prohibit the development and use of certain high-risk AI systems to be used by or on children under 18. What it's specifically geared towards is those companies producing covered product. Covered product meaning it's like a chat companion chat that can attempt to provide mental health therapy to children. And that specific part of high risk AI systems, which they are defining as covered product, they're worried that what will happen is that the child will develop a relationship to this AI program, this chat companion, and lead to additional behavioral issues and also some unintended negative consequences with going into therapy with an AI device rather than a human being that can really truly have that nuanced conversation with a child. This is in the Senate Judiciary Committee, so it did go out of its House of Origin over to the Senate side. So we'll see what happens. Then we have the and good one. I'm going to do two specifically for special ed and for HR. AB 1412. That is to either develop if needed, adopt or implement an IEP within 30 days of receiving a student's records when they transfer from out of state. We already have that in place for when a child goes district to district in state 30 days. This would be a statute for anybody coming from out of state. Especially military families have had problems with this when they move state to state, making sure they get their services within that 30-day time frame. So it is in committee for military and veterans affairs. I'm not sure, that was kind of weird to see, but the other one is AB 998. It would allow a school to confiscate the vape pens as household hazardous waste and then be able to take the pens to a hazardous waste collection facility. The school could do that to get rid of them. So that's actually in the Senate Environmental Quality Committee. It passed the House of Origin. And the last one I wanted to bring up, which I thought was really great, was SB 716, which is it's about internet service, high-speed internet service. Qualified low-income residents already get a discount for cell phone services. We would add additional discount for broadband services. And the intention is to make sure that we have equitable access to high-speed internet for all students and all families, and making sure that it's reliable and affordable. Because as we saw in COVID, we do have gaps of people that have high-speed internet and not. And this is in the Assembly, in the Communication and Conveyance Committee. So it did switch the House of Origin. So those are some updates and also some additional piece of interesting legislation, especially the one with the AI. You know, that's kind of scary that you have AI doing mental health services to students. That to me is a scary aspect that I didn't even know was possible. So those are my updates for you. Do you have any questions?
Any other discussion?
Updates from last week when we adopted our advocacy platform. I took that advocacy platform that is adopted. You'll see the printed copy with our letterhead here in your board packet. It all fit on 2 pages with the letterhead, so that was good. I kept the Google Doc that it was drafted from for historical purposes. We could have all of the changes that we made last week highlighted. And then I took those advocacy priorities and started moving them towards identifying the legislative path forward for each one of them. So for full and fair ongoing funding, I found some sections of Ed Code that would be the appropriate place to legislate in a rural LCFF add-on. Same for LCAP, our safe and modern schools, transportation funding, and support for special education. So I went through all of those looking for the relevant pieces of ed code that we, legislators to adjust. Next, I'll take a look on the federal level for IDEA. That one might be easier going, but I just wanted to give the update that I'm continuing to pick at each of those now that we have an adopted platform. Any questions?
I
Looks
just want to
great,
thank you. Yeah, thank you for putting the ed code to it. It kind of educates those legislators whose background really isn't in education to be able to see that we're not coming out of left field, but these are legit areas. I mean, we do have a senator that came from, a school board, so it's familiar, but that isn't always the case. And so I appreciate you being able to tie it to somebody and to educate our legislators.
Jordan, are you gonna put that in the drive as well, those notes on ed code?
I'm happy to provide it to Dr. Saviano if you want to include it in the Friday update so that you all get a link to it. That works.
Unless it'd be best to have the whole form with those ed code.
With those ed codes identified in the drives.
That's
More
exactly,
accessible.
yes, that's exactly what I'll do. But I'll give that update link to Dr. Saviano, so we all get it. But yeah, it'll include here's the platform, and then I'll add like kind of a editor's note section about the relevant pieces of ed code.
So I just want to bring up, it's kind of advocacy and kind of board education is the AEC in December is in Sacramento. I don't know, I'm just putting it out there. I have to go for delegate assembly. So I will be going to Sacramento, but I am just saying is that I know in the past we have decided to always stay quote unquote Southern California. I don't know if people want to change that and have that discussion or not. It is not too late to register. We can register even the day of, it just gets more expensive. And then the hotel situation, but I'm just putting it out there because I know that some board members have expressed desire to go. And so I just want to make sure that I just put it out there. If people want to discuss it at some point and say, yeah, I would love to do AEC, but that's up to y'all.
Do you have a comparison of the cost or is it better than San Diego?
It's the AEC, so there's different threads in terms of focuses for the workshops and the panel discussions. Some of it is the same. You're always going to be able to have some, there's always going to be a budget. There's always going to be board governance. Usually
It's the hotel costs that seem to be.
the hotels are about 200 and it's comparable to San Diego. Yes.
Comparable.
Yeah, it's like 259, 279, because you do get the AEC price for it. And there's surprisingly a lot of choices on that list. I was surprised when I got it for delegate assembly because delegate housing opens first. So I already did my thing.
We
So
can put in the Friday update and get to solicit some feedback from the board.
yeah, that's why I'm bringing it up in this because it is both education, but there's also advocacy. They do have advocacy workshops, advocacy 101, 102, 103. Usually I haven't seen what the agenda looks like, but there is opportunities for advocacy training.
I think we've avoided it because of the expense,
Right.
especially if it was in San Francisco area. So I think it's worth us considering.
I agree.
I just wanted us to be able to have that opportunity to talk amongst ourselves to bring it up.
Thank you for that, Cindy. And again, Jordan, thank you for this advocacy platform outline. It's great. Looks like usual. Well done. 11.1 superintendent proposed extended contract for the superintendent to ensure continued district leadership stability, fiscal impact to be determined. So moved. Have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I believe that this version is, has the highlights removed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, maybe.
Just kidding. Okay, sorry.
Passes unanimously 4-0.
So kind of yank your chin a little
I know
bit.
he's going to. Is there a maybe?
No, definitive, yes, definitive, yes, for God's sakes.
Do I do out of order right now?
She already made herself out of order, so.
Can we do that? Can we do monetary penalty?
Yeah.
Dollar. 11.2, superintendent approval of the contract MOU for the California Adult Education Program, CAEP, Rim of the World School District was approved for $97,817 by the Inland Adult Education Consortium, LAEC, fiscal impact, $97,817 funded by the Inland Adult Education Consortium, IEAC. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second,
Second.
discussion?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll just simply say this is great. We're moving into adult education again, which is something that is really recent. So yes.
Question on so this is being paid for by the Inland Adult Education Consortium. Do we get this money every single year to continue paying for it?
Yeah, we joined the consortium this past year, and this is really to authorize, they've authorized some of the CAPE funding, which is the California Adult Education Program Fund. It's a block grant given to all all districts that are eligible for adult education. It would continue in year 25, 26, 26, 27. If the board continues, that means the consortium board continues to authorize that funding.
Yes, Dr. Severiano, it's my understanding that that could go up as well in the future. Is that not true?
That's true. As program expands, they look at based on your enrollment numbers and your needs.
And we already have people lining up.
We had a preliminary invitation for folks to, if they're interested in signing up. We had 25 adults from ESL wanting that course to be put on right away. We had projected that to be a January course, but we decided to move that one up and offered it in August because of the need. Additionally, we are recruiting or looking for students who did not complete the diploma requirements from 2012 to current, but currently reside in our mountain that need that diploma-based course.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we have some interest from our wonderful neighbors to the east.
That's correct. We also have interest from Bear Valley Unified School District, residents in Big Bear who are interested in joining that program as well.
And then we're doing outreach to those students that didn't get their diploma, like through Mountain High School and Rim High School, to say, hey, get your GED now. I want to make it super clear because I got somebody questioning this heavily, so I just want to make it clear what we're doing to encourage enrollment.
Yes, we do have a listing of those students, and Mr. Montiel will be working on reaching out and contacting those individuals who may qualify for this program.
Further discussion? Okay, can I get a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. Unanimous. 11.3, business services, approval of the proposal with MGT Impact Solutions to conduct an organizational study of the maintenance, operations, and transportation department. Fiscal impact, $69,744, budget source, locally restricted funds. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second,
Discussion.
I just want to point out that this money is coming from restricted funds, not general funds. And that part of this study is also taking a look at our bus routes to see if we can be more efficient, more effective, if there's a cost savings to reorganization. That is part of this study, and we're excited about having somebody that has that expertise in transportation who can really do a good job in looking at our routes and to look at the way we're organized.
Ms. Haverly, just provide a quick update on that, in terms of the scope of that.
Yeah, we are excited because by coincidence, one of their team members was actually a resident 30 years up on the mountain, a graduate from RAM, has done some work and travels in the industry across the country and has consulted with Annie, I think is the most recent without bringing my notes in. And so looking at, so very familiar and understanding, you know, a lot of times we'll be stuck with one way, not having a turnaround spot where maybe something might seem, you know, more reasonable in a car. It's not as reasonable with the buses and the topography of, you know, end to end. And so I think that'll also do a lot of validating too, and then help with the standard operating procedures as we move into technology. And as we want to tighten up procedures or have procedures that are working well, maybe just not in writing. And where this is also going to cross over is, you know, I'm assuming kickoff meetings over the summer. But looking at the custodial and the board and superintendent goals with our cleaning standards and helping write some of those handbooks and policies is a lot of their expertise as well. And so Mr. Zimmer, Mr. Hansen and I met yesterday. We talked a little bit about it and just tapping into some expertise, but also some third-party suggestions that will take some of the personal stuff out of it for how close some of us are and being a small town. What we get into.
And so let me just add, this study is the purpose of the study is to ensure that we receive some long-term savings in our operations, to look at our operations, see how we can be more efficient and more cost-effective in utilizing our resources. So I think that's a big part of this, this study. And once we receive the results, we will all reconvene and discuss what our options are.
Any other discussion? Calling for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously 4-0. 11.4 business services. Should I stop?
No.
Business services approval to award proposal number 242505 for architectural services and contract with TBP Architectural for School Improvement Projects. Fiscal impact to be determined. Budget source, Measure E bond funds.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, we have this, we have a representative from TVP here, and Ms. Haverland is going to also to kind of review our rigorous approval process and selection process.
Okay, thank you very much. We have Mr. Gary Moon, who has joined us by Zoom this evening. But before we ask him to speak, just a little bit about the process. We started off with a request for proposal for architectural services. And that we worked with Jim and Nicole in my office and myself and Dr. Siviano and issued that request for proposal. We received 12 proposals from architect firms. We interviewed 5 of them. We were all on the selection committee and checked references and went through that process. Ended up being a little, maybe because of some timing and being able to get some items calendared, maybe a little bit of a longer process than normal, but we're really pleased with our selection. I did bring some extra promotional materials on our bids that we had, from our interviews, if you'd like to take one with you. But we've also, Gary has some experience with RIM in a past life that he'll talk about. And we're super excited to start teaming up with TVP on scope and project planning and DSA planning with our partners at Schoolworks also for tap into state funding and to start putting our community dollars in place to make improvements in the schools. We're super excited about that opportunity. We had a meeting today about the timeline for bond sales and what that'll look like. So moving slow to go fast in the construction, but we're super excited about it. So welcome, Gary.
Thank you. And very nice to meet you, at least Zoom wise. Remember the World Unified School District Board. It's amazing that you passed Measure E, so congratulations to you and of course to the community. We tried to pass a bond previously when we did the previous master plan, and it proved to be too difficult, unfortunately. So it's really awesome that you did that, and I think it's going to be a great support to all the different schools in your district. And as Jenny said, we have had quite a bit of experience working in the district. Worked at RIM High School, worked at Crestline. We did the building that you're sitting in right now, as well as a bunch of other ones. And it says my internet connection's unstable. Sorry.
I can hear
Yeah,
you.
we can hear you.
Okay. So we're just looking forward to starting the whole planning process. And as Jenny said, it does seem to take a little while to get moving, but you need to do it judiciously. So we're all great stewards of the bond money. And however, there are some projects that we'll be able to probably start pretty quickly and show your community that, that everyone's invested in trying to do the best job possible and get projects going as quickly as possible. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
So from this point forward, we're going to take a look at those projects per the master facilities plan and the bond language and start a priority, for lack of a better word, priority list of what we can do and when we're going to do it so that we're fiscally responsible in selling the bond and not, imposing undue taxes on our assessment taxes on our community, correct?
Right. That's the very first thing we'll want to do is come up with a list of all the projects, because as you all know, I think right now it's kind of a challenging time in terms of what schools cost and determining what that will be. So the priority list is probably the most important thing. So we understand what you want to accomplish and what's top priority in the district, and we'll work down the list until, and effectively until the money's spoken for.
I have one question. I know that some of the projects are also funded by the state. Is there a timeline on that as well, whether we can receive that money or not?
So at the moment, believe it or not, most of the money is spoken for state funding. So that means, what that means is that if you have eligibility and you're going to receive matching funds from the state, at the very least, if we don't get the money, it'll go on a list that's an unfunded list and you will be funded. It just won't be immediately. Okay.
We had experience with that with our third phase of rimline modernization, where we actually had to keep our plans open for about 4 years while we were waiting for the state to sell another round of bonds, because we were on that approved but unfunded list for a few years. So we were able to just keep some plans alive and go ahead, and once the state had sold another bond, we were immediately funded very quickly, to continue and finish the modernization phase 3.
Good to have experience. Other comments or questions?
All right, well, thank you, Gary,
Okay.
for coming on with us. It's a little bit of a quieter board meeting because of June 26th. A lot of people are already in vacation mode, but
Yeah.
so thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time to talk to
Thank
y'all later. Bye-bye.
11.5, business services, approval of wait a second. Point of order,
We might want
a
to,
vote,
we might want
call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed?
All right. Well,
Yeah, approved 4-0. I know, he was hanging on edge there. Now we can move on to 11.5, business services, approval of resolution number 24-25 40 for maintaining a positive financial position, fiscal impact none.
So moved.
Seconded. Discussion?
Jenny, why do we need this resolution? Why don't we just do it?
This is the resolution. We also passed one, almost word for word the same with, our second interim financial report. But this is required by our county office as part of their budget review process if we are deficit spending. And if we have a, reserve balance that's rapidly, shrinking. So it's formality, yes. But it's also to make the public and all the stakeholders aware that the county also takes their AB 1200 oversight seriously and does expect the district to be working on the deficit spending patterns.
Other discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously, 4-0. 11.6, business services, draft resolution number 24-25-41 to declare property known as Grandview Elementary located at 180 Grandview Road, Lake Arrowhead, California, 92352 as exempt surplus land under the California Surplus Land Act, fiscal impact none.
So moved.
Cindy,
Second.
Bill's a second. Discussion?
I'm sorry, I didn't see the attachment for this one. I was wondering if there's a copy of it.
It was placed on everyone's
I
packet
got
this morning.
40, resolution 40. Oh, here, this one. I apologize. I misread that. Thank you.
And this is except for the property address, this is very similar, if not almost identical to the HCD resolution draft that we submitted on the Blue Jay property.
Further
And
discussion?
other entities have already had an opportunity to try to secure the property for themselves, so that's why it's time to do it now.
It does give that last chance. We've notified everyone. We've notified close entities 2-3 times. And, but with the housing and community development, it's more certifying that we've gone through the process. Correctly.
Any other discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously, 4-0. Consent calendar. We have a point of clarification on 12.4, a revision consisting of a name change. And for discussion, I'm gonna start off with a, sorry. 12.12 will be pulled for discussion as well. Any other items need to be pulled for discussion?
Yes,
Or-
please. 12.16, 12.20, and 24.
And yeah, we just add 23 on there too. I'm serious.
Just wanted to give you that smile with clarification, that's all. Okay, so which one was that again, Bill?
23.
So just to clarify, 12.12, 12.16, 12.20, and 12.23, and 12.24 will be pulled for further discussion. With that,
Without reading the ones
fun
that
part.
are smart.
with that, I move to approve 12.1, 12.2, 12.3, 12.5, 12.6, 12.7, 12.8, 12.9, 12.10, 12.11, 12.13, 12.14, 12.15, 12.17, 12.18, 12.19, 12.21, 12.22, 12.25, 12.26, 12.27, 12.28, 12.29, 12.30, 12.31, 12.32, 12.33, 12.34, 12.35, 12.36, 12.37, 12.38, and 12.39. Do I have a motion?
So
I'm okay. So move.
I'll second.
Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved unanimously, 4-0. And brings us to 13. Items removed from the consent calendar. We'll start with 12.12.
Yes.
Yeah.
You pulled 12.4.
That was just a revision.
Revision.
Right? Did it have to be full for
It was
revision?
printed, right? And publicly notified, right? So I think,
That is correct. It was posted
so you didn't actually pull it. I think you read it off as,
as a.
I read it off.
yeah, you read it off.
So 12.12.
And we have this Whiteside to provide some information on this item. First, I'm sorry, call for a motion.
Call for a motion.
So
Second.
Discussion.
Ms. Whiteside?
Did you want me to go there? Any Okay, so 12.12 is a presentation of the local indicators. As part of your requirement for the LCAP, you need to share the local indicators as part of transparency at the same board meeting that you adopt the LCAP. So we'll go through these in brief, but essentially your local indicators are there to again provide that transparency and that feedback, especially along the lines of educational partner decision making, input, standards alignment, and so forth. So, all right. Okay. So if you look at the school dashboard indicators you have on the left, the document you've seen several times, which is basically how the LCAP is organized around the goals, actions, and metrics, your local measures and your state measures. So if you think of the LCAP and you think of your local measures, think of this as like your Google map of all the things we're putting in the LCAP, right, and all the things that we're measuring. Show us where we're going and where we've been. Our district relationships and priorities align to goals 1, 2, and 3. You kind of think of those as our GPS coordinates. That is student-centered. And how are we guiding the work? When you look at how we look at the local indicators, we will survey through Kelvin. We'll get surveys out through Parent Square. We work in our educational partner meetings, like our LCAP meetings, our school site council meetings. But again, we compile that data, so again, that we have that educational partner feedback and we have that transparency. Okay, so when you look at the local indicators, the first one that you see is around like our Williams sufficiency. That process begins each year in March. We do a preliminary sufficiency with our library techs and our admin to see where we are and look at the enrollment projection for the next year and add about a 10% so that we can go through our order management. Now, at that point, books haven't been turned in yet, right? Because you're still in March, but you're doing a projection of enrollment. And that's where that 10% buffer is to make sure that you're prepared. So that section is looking at our teacher staff, it's looking at our Williams sufficiency and our fit. And so that's essentially the process each year of where we stand on those numbers. Looking good across the board there. So for the next section, you've got the implementation of state board adopted academic and performance standards. And so there's a series of questions that are looking at where are we in terms of implementation. We have ranged between the 3 and the 4 initial and full implementation for the last several years. We're about the same place we were last year in terms of the 3 to 4 range, depending on the specific question. And so as that work continues with our GDC days and the information that we shared at our recent board workshop, there's more work to be done. But again, this is an opportunity to give teachers an opportunity to share, and that goes out through survey to our staff. That next slide, you'll see that's implementation and how programs and services are there to support our ELs. You'll see again, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see I give you kind of a rundown of what's involved with each one of those questions. So like with question 3, looking at our PD, our PLC, our GDC, essentially all of the professional development. Think of all of the work with the county, work with ED SELPA for inclusion, all of those partnerships, solution tree, and that we work together to support the PD and training. Number 4 is around Williams sufficiency, CTE alignment, PFT, Prop 28, and the seal of biliteracy. And then your next question there is number 5 is again rating the LEA's success of engaging the following activities with teachers, and again getting their feedback and identifying professional learning, what do they see needs for, and kind of where we are there. The surveys that we get back from our staff really do guide next steps with building our professional development plans, specifically for next year around like EL and inclusion.
And these scores here are actually the results of those surveys with the teachers.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Absolutely. Okay, making sure I'm on the right side there. Alrighty, so yeah, we talked about parental involvement. If you think about PTA, DLAC, LCAP, school site council, if it has an acronym, we involve the educational partners. We want to make sure that they're involved in that process and part of the decision making, and that you have that two-way communication. You'll see that in the LCAP requirements quite frequently, that it's not just one-way communication, but two-way, and that they're involved in the decision making. Again, you're seeing those scores in the 3 to 4 range in terms of initial versus full implementation. All right, so. And again, that's the continued of our educational partners input. So some of our Kelvin surveys, when you look at this slide, just thought I would show you, since you've seen some of those percentages before in previous presentations, what is the change from the previous year? We're very similar to previous years in terms of participation and favorability. Either there's no change or a minimal change in percentage. But then when you look at the student results, staff results, and family results, we do narrow those down to 2 dimensions, things like physical safety, sense of belonging, instructional environment. And again, you can see where those slight changes exist across our district. And so part of our next steps for next year is we are looking at how we get more educational partner feedback in the LCAP process and try to get more participation in our survey process and additional feedback. I think those percentages could definitely increase.
Yeah, they need to click that dog.
They need to click the little dog, and yes, we talk about that, how it wiggles in the corner, right, for the students, and they know, okay, I've got to take that survey at some point. We're also partnering in, you'll see in your update this week, that we're working with Panorama to see what other checks you can do along the way. Kelvin is 4 times a year. Beginning of the year, about 2 mid-years, and then end of year. There are some surveys through Panorama that we're exploring that do more frequent check-ins, and they tie directly back to the student. So that as a site administrator or site teacher, you know, you can pull up a student in your class, pull up a student that you're talking to in the office and see not just academics, behavior, and attendance, but you can also see how they specifically responded to the surveys in these dimensions. So something we're exploring for 25-26.
The one that stood out to me was emotional safety of staff, which went down 4%, and yet it's still at what seems to be a pretty good rate at 83%.
Right, and that's something where that can fluctuate just a little bit, of course, based on the participation rate, right? But that emotional safety does remain high, which is great. Alrighty, so then the last couple of slides that you'll see again are metrics that you've seen shares with the dashboard updates and the CAST updates. But it's just kind of wrapping up with the local indicators. It's really important that we share the information that we share over to CDE. Those reports are open as of June 2nd. Those are reported already to CDE. And so what you have in the Google Drive, the board Google Drive, you'll see again, as well as with the board agenda item, is the full version of the local indicators. But essentially the screenshots that you see on each side are portions of that. So essentially, again, very important that we remain transparent in our process, open with our decision making, and engaging all of our educational partners when we're developing professional development. And of course, as we are right now, in the throes of building all the plans for 25-26 and making sure that our educational partners' feedback is guiding it. Any questions?
No, you guided us very well throughout the course of the year. You gave us awesome data the whole time.
Lots of data.
I love the lots of data. I do.
It's good.
I read that data. There are people.
No one heard you.
I know, that's because I'm muttering to myself.
Any other discussion?
I will continue my own conversation with myself.
In that case, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously 4-0. The additional item polled for discussion, 12.16, educational services approval of the proposed scope of work, teacher, librarian of record services for Room of the World Unified School District during the 2025-2026 school year, fiscal impact $14,800, budget source, general fund. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Discussion?
So it just explain, I know what it is, but for people that don't understand this and they go, why are you spending another 14,800? My understanding is we have a change in position. So if we could explain that, that would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we do have a change in position. So since we do not currently have a district librarian for the 25-26 school year, this would be contracted services through San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. To ensure that we have our CDE annual report completed, our library plan is updated. We go through collection and development and the leading process. And then support, of course, with our Williams sufficiency. The consultant with San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools gives us a list of things that are required by the state, as well as support to our library services across our district. And so that would be up to 14,800, but could be less if we don't settle.
So once a month, our librarian is going to be met with. The other part of this is just to be clear for everybody out there in TV land.
Yeah.
We are not going, so we've lost a person. So now, which salary and benefits. So now we're going to this contract of only 14,800 in order for us to stay compliant.
Right.
I have a question because many years ago, before you, Mrs. Whiteside, a long time ago, we did have something like this, and then we were told that we had to have somebody, a person in that spot as district librarian, that we had to. So can you explain why we get to do this?
Yeah, so we reached out to San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools to find out what are our options available to make sure that we were informed in the decision. One option is a small school districts consortium and that they can share a consultant. And the county reached out for us and there was no one available to join a consortium with us. The other option is to go forward with a consulting contract. The person that we're working with also consults with another district to do the same services.
And this is just to clarify, significant overall savings.
Huge.
Any other discussion? Call for a vote, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously 4-0. Item 12.20, educational services approval of the proposal to purchase 50 copies of the Impact California Grade 7 Student Edition World History and Geography textbook for Mary Putman Hank Intermediate School. Fiscal impact $5,850. Budget source general fund. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Did you second it?
I did not.
Okay, second.
Discussion?
So I know why we're doing this. So my understanding is that this is to replenish and make sure that we're in compliance with the Williams Act.
Yes, but to add to that, we are digitally sufficient at the secondary level. This does support us being in a position where if we needed to transition between digitally sufficient back to physical sufficiency, we'd be able to do that. Last year was our first year with secondary being digitally sufficient. So we wanted to make sure that we had the class sets and a little bit of that buffer in the event that we needed to switch back. But we are currently solid with the digital sufficiency. Thank you, Mr. Mullen.
And a broader question related to curriculum. So just real fast, the process we go to select curriculum, real fast, and then the assurance that we have that curriculum gets used once it's selected.
Great question. So starting with the adoption process, we always start with a committee. You want to make sure that you have representatives from that department and grade level on that committee. We also want to be inclusive and ensure that we have representation for, in terms of supports for ELs as well as supports for students receiving special services. And we want to make sure that that committee is comprehensive. We start that committee, bring the team together. Our instructional coaches support with working with our publishers to provide the state board, depending on the grade level and content area. The SBE approved materials for that grade level and content area. And we do a review essentially in that committee meeting to narrow down to typically 2 to 3 publishers that we're going to pilot. Then we set a time frame for that pilot and try to look at similar units by grade level and content area so that when our teams are taking a look at the materials, they have the rubric for questions in terms of the efficacy of those materials. We look at things again like support for special services, support for EL services, interventions and enrichment, digital access. But we also look at teacher usability, student usability, and make sure that we're looking at it from all those angles and have an agreed upon rubric so that when they have piloted, our teachers that are part of that pilot process have an opportunity to return to the rubric. There's also the process of the public notification. We have the materials on review for 30 days here at the district office. We do also ensure that there's a digital component to all of our newly adopted curriculum. And so we provide not only the physical materials here at the district office, but the links to the digital access. So again, that our parents can provide those comments and feedback. We do take those comments and feedback back to the committee when they're going to review the rubrics and then go ahead and make their determination to move forward. So it's a very comprehensive, full educational partnership in terms of that process. Now, in terms of moving to use of the board adopted curriculum, we want to make sure that we're looking at standards alignment and curriculum alignment, right? And so that process is multi-layered. It's working with our site principals, it's working with our instructional coaches, it's working with our teachers and making sure they have the training that goes along with the adopted curriculum. And that's part of, if you kind of go back to the adoption process, is making sure that you have solid training to support. And then as we go through the Williams sufficiency process, there's more opportunities to learn and to grow based on the content area. and to find out what works, what doesn't, when can we supplement, when are we using that board adopted curriculum? And again, ensuring its use, but also making sure that we are supporting our teachers in that process. Sometimes when we do get a new curriculum, it can be a lot, right? Especially science, you can get huge kits and even just going through the inventory of those kits and making sure that you're aligning those with the instruction that you're doing. But also taking in some of the historical, activities and making them fun. And how can you make that engaging for the student? It's an all-encompassing process, but it's multi-layered. It's working all the way together. In terms of all of us here, working with our principals, our instructional coaches, supporting our departments, our PLC teams, our leadership teams, again, to make sure that's an inclusive process all the way around.
So what I'm hearing is that the board or the superintendent or cabinet is not making the decision in a void, that it's really starting at the level of the teachers and piloting it to see if it will meet the needs and going from there and going through the process, correct?
Absolutely. And it is so important. That teacher voice is so important. And that's why I think in recent rubrics, we've made sure to include the student efficacy, but also important, the teacher usability, right? How accessible is this curriculum? And making sure that our teachers are supported along the way. And they agree upon the rubric in the committee before we even use the rubric, right? We have to have that collective agreement on these are the criteria by which, right, outside of just the content standards that we want to see within this curriculum before we adopt it.
And how often do we go through all that process, and particularly the piloting, which seems to be very important? You've already done the rubric and everything. How often does that happen where then we don't really make use of the curriculum?
Well, I think that is a varied process, right? And again, it's supporting our teachers with that implementation. I'll just go back to that. I think it's really important that we support our teachers with the process.
So if we don't use it, do you think we didn't listen somewhere along the journey where the teachers that were piloting it didn't communicate maybe challenges with the curriculum?
We also want to look at the time frame. There are times where we might do an expedited adoption, but we're still fully including all of our teacher teams and the grade levels. There are sometimes transition in grade levels or departments where maybe they weren't part of a pilot, but again, they need to get that training and that support and making sure that they're part of that and that they feel that we're coming alongside and providing the resources. It's conditions for success, right? When we look at students, we want to create the conditions for success. When we look at our teaching staff, we want to give them the conditions for success as well and ensure that they're included in that process.
And that's why I appreciate the piloting, that we're listening to our educators. It's our educators that are making the decision. We're basically supporting the decision of the educators.
I think there's also cases when you pilot materials, you decide that's not a match. And you have the option in which to then say, I'm going to pilot another curriculum.
Good.
So there's that opportunity as well.
There's
Good.
flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would hope for that.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion? Yeah, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously 4-0. Moving on to 12.23, Educational Services Approval of the Renewal Agreement for Envision Consulting Group to provide the services of preparing the School Accountability Report Card, SARC, for all school sites for the 2025-2026 school year. Fiscal impact, $3,150, budget source, general funds. Got a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. Discussion?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, what do we actually get for that? And are we actually, well, no, what would we get for it?
Oh, absolutely. So we've been partnering with Envision, I think since the time I've been in the district. So the end of my 9th year. So as a site principal, we would work with our representative from Envision on a yearly basis. They would support us with developing the school accountability report card. And they would go through and support us with putting in the data, the fit information in terms of the facility inspection tool, the and I just recently looked at this again because we're updating it for Williams sufficiency. But square footage, the volume, the acreage of every school, there's a lot of data to compile there. And so huge support to our principals as they're going through their school year, right, to go ahead and compile and support them with that work. So you'll see your school accountability report cards are on our district website, as well as available at our schools and in our district in a physical format. Essentially, this is someone who helps synthesize all of that work and supports our principals with completion of the SARCs on an annual basis.
Thank you for that.
Which is
Further-
required.
Which is required, yes.
Further discussion?
Just one comment, it also includes our teacher credentials and making sure that those, you know, in terms of who's on a permit, who's not, that's all included in the SARC report. It's a lot of data to compile. And you know, having someone to do that and not having our principals overwhelmed and collecting that data, I think is a benefit.
Thank you. They're not really there to try to help us improve our testing scores or anything like that. Correct?
It's a different service.
Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. 12.24, educational services approval to purchase Frog Street ELA and math curriculum for transitional kindergarten TK beginning with the 2025-2026 school year. Fiscal impact $39,814.83. Budget source restricted lottery.
So moved.
Seconded. Jordan, discussion?
So again, now this is from restricted lottery, not our general fund, which is great. My understanding is, again, we have Williams, sufficiency, sorry, well, both. And so explain.
Absolutely. So 25-26 first full year of universal TK. We adopted TK materials in 2012. So that was the last time we had formally adopted English and math. And that was Frog Street splash into pre-K. So we worked with our TK teachers to identify their resources that are remaining for TK. And with the increase in our TK numbers coming for 25-26, wanted to make sure that we have all of the ELA and math curriculum. This is both. So these kits for our TK4 classes have both English and math embedded. For TK for science and history, we adopted TK5 for Amplify and for Studies Weekly. So if you think of your 4 core subject areas, Amplify and Studies Weekly or TK5, but in English and math, it was K5. And the TK was identified separately as English and math with Frog Street. So I did meet with a TK teacher from each of our school sites, each of our elementaries on a Zoom to go through all their resources, and then went through and did a visit on how we could support them with making sure they had this curriculum available. And again, aligned to the PTKLF, which is the preschool kinder TK learning foundations.
So my next question is this was all adopted in 2012. So I know we're doing this because we do have a Williams visit at the beginning of the school year, and we need to make sure that we are sufficient in all of our materials. However, do we need to revisit the materials and look at possibly piloting?
It's something that we can look at.
I mean, I'm just asking because the fact that is an adoption in 12. It's not like horrendous like in the 1990s, but I'm just saying.
And it is something that you could take a look at in terms of potentially extending like our journeys and our Go Math. But again, looking at the splash into pre-K and the Frog Street, they align well with the PTKLF. And so, which is aligned to like choice and play. So there are options available for us.
Yeah, just one comment, if I may, that it's a developmental curriculum as opposed to a content-driven curriculum. So I think that's the distinction. We have to keep that in mind, that the developmental aspects of early childhood education are important for choosing those appropriate curriculum.
So this still works,
Yes.
is basically what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. And we
Okay.
did a review with each of the school sites and their.
And they're really cool with it.
And they were in alignment. Absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make sure our TK teachers are good.
And is there any issue with supply?
what was coming,
Is there any issue with supply for getting it for next school year?
not that we're aware of.
Okay. Any other discussion? On call for a vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously 4-0. With that, moving on. We have governance. Team future agenda items planning. Time allowed for the board of trustees to request agenda items for future meetings. 14.1. None. Moving on to 15.0, future meeting dates, regular board meetings, regular board meeting, August 14th, 2025, 4:00 PM, closed session. 5:30 PM, open session, 24740 San Moritz Way, Crestline, California, 92325. And then we have regular board meeting September 18th, 2025, 4:00 PM, closed session. And 5:30 PM, open session, 24740 San Moritz Way, Crestline, California, 92325. 16. Recess to closed session is not necessary. And adjournment, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll give you that motion.
Wow, thank you so much, George.
Face.
Second,
Yay.
go with the second.
It's getting good now.
Do we have discussion?
No, I'm just having.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously 4-0.
Super interesting right now.
Welcome, Shannon. Hit the gavel.